The chair calls Blair Cushing, testifying on behalf of himself, and the Texas Academy of Family Physicians, testifying for the bill. Welcome. Would you identify yourself?
Good morning. My name is Blair Cushing. I'm currently a fourth-year medical student at the University of North Texas Health Science Center. I'm actually representing two organizations today, the Texas Academy of Family Physicians and the Texas Osteopathic Medical Association. Excuse me. We are in favor of this bill. So you've heard already a good bit about the administrative regulations with respect to MTRAC, and I wanted to share with you all some of my personal experience in clinical rotations and what I've seen from MTRAC and how it can affect our patients in a very positive way. So on my first clinical rotation of third year, it was a family practice rotation with one of the JPS community clinics up in Bedford, which is northeast Tarrant County. And the population that we serve there is largely immigrant population. Large number of the families, English is not the first language. Very transient population, and about 50% of the patients that we served in the family practice department there were pediatrics. The physician who was supervising me, she was pretty tough. She struck fear into the hearts of the medical students. And the things that she really expected us to know were what are the preventative health measures for every age of the lifespan. And with pediatrics, that included the immunization schedule. So you're not going to go look it up on the chart. You need to know what immunizations at what time for every child. The problem that arose is that I was consistently seeing children who were coming in and their parents would have a variety of different pieces of paper with different records from all different places. Again, because they were transient population, they had lived in all different areas of the state and county, had not been receiving consistent medical care, and it wasn't always well documented where they had received their vaccines. Some were in MTRAC, some were not, some had never heard of MTRAC. The one thing I will tell you is that when I would present it to a family and say, hey, we do have this online system, and if we go ahead and we put the children's immunization records in there, it will follow them everywhere. The school, you don't have to go and present your paper cards. Even the school nurse will be able to look it up and verify that the child has what they need for school. And I never had a single parent turn me down on that offer. They understood that this was a very valuable resource for them to be able to have. Unfortunately, I cannot express the number of days when I was kind of getting yelled at for what's taking so long with this patient, and it was simply a fact of I have 4 different immunization records that I'm trying to reconcile. So before I can answer your question about what immunizations this kid needs, I have to figure out what they've even had. And unfortunately, I did recognize a number of instances where a child even received too many vaccines simply because of the fact that they were receiving their care in a variety of different places. Some of our large urban areas, through some of the public health departments and other immunization collaboratives, Dallas County in particular, they offer the Dallas Caravan, which provides immunizations. And a lot of our kids, if the parents didn't have the proper card or the school couldn't make sense of what immunization records they had available, they would just tell the family, well, go to the Dallas Caravan and get your immunizations there. And they would, and a lot of times they would get additional vaccinations that they'd already had. And had they been properly documented in MTRAC, we could have told them that. On the other side of that, I would also like to give you an example of a clinic I worked in just this past January, a family practice down in New Braunfels. It was a private practice, just 2 family docs working side by side. They had delivered most of the young people that they were seeing in that clinic, so they had great consistency of care, and they utilized MTRAC. And in the 4 weeks that I worked in that practice, I never had a single patient that we saw that we didn't have perfect information of which vaccines they had and where they were with their vaccine schedule. Some other things that haven't been mentioned yet today that I would say are also kind of crucially important to the tracking and why it becomes so difficult right now is that there's been a number of vaccine shortages recently. When possible, pediatricians and family docs do like to give what we call the combined vaccines, which reduces the number of physical shots that we have to provide for a child. But a lot of those combo vaccines have been in shortage. So that's another thing that kind of complicates what information ends up on the immunization record, allows for, increased medical error and, unfortunately, errors within the data transcription. So I do feel that MTRAC is a very positive thing on behalf of these organizations. We're very much in favor of HB 465, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions, members? Representative Zedler.
But you do understand that nothing has kept them from sending the data in right now. All they have to do is ask the patient's permission, right?
Yes, I recognize that data is already being collected. It's should be transmitted to the health department, though, again, just in terms of what I've seen, data making it onto a vaccine card or making it into MTRAC, it would lead me just to naturally question how much of that data is really making it to the state in the first place. So,
See, it appears to me that regardless of which system they're asking us to do, the patient ought to be asked their permission, one way or the other. And so what it boils down to is if they're, right now, if they want to opt in, send it there. The patient ought to be asked, right?
so
Before we start sharing that information with anybody else, the patient ought to be asked, right?
So I believe that it's something that at the time of vaccines being administered, that we should certainly make everyone aware that this is happening, whether it's the current system or moving to what is going to happen with HB 465. But additionally, I think one other piece of information that's written into this bill that I don't think I've heard discussed yet in any of the testimony today is that the language of this bill would also say we will very clearly put on the printouts that you receive from MTRAC, that every printout will now say you have the opportunity to opt out and have your information removed. And that's not something that's there right now, and that's something that I think would be important to have there as well, and I'm glad that that provision is also in the bill.
Yes.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. May I ask a question?
Yes, please do.
Thank you so much for taking time to come down here. I know you're very busy, especially being a fourth-year medical student. So thank you so much for coming and to provide your valuable testimony. And I just wanted to point out, it says that the individual in the House Bill 465 will be asked at each visit, each time they get an immunization, they will be asked whether they want to opt out. So the question will be asked, Representative Zedler, at each time that they're given that immunization. That's what's said in this bill. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear and understood, that you get noticed at each visit and you are provided the opportunity to opt out each time you get an immunization.
Yes, and I would also concur with that and say that one of the good practices of providers, in the same way that we would fill out that old school paper card of which immunizations have been provided, is that we would provide people with that immunization printout from MTRAC as well. And as was just mentioned, that statement would be on there in writing, so even in cases where maybe you didn't understand what this MTRAC was or what was going on, that you would have it physically in writing, leaving the visit along with the vaccines that you have received, saying that you have the opportunity to do that and how you can go about doing it.
So you get a paper copy too? Okay.
Question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a little different question for you. I know we have been talking about vaccines for so long. A lot of folks in this room may not recall, remember, or ever know how many vaccines are given. So, from one colleague to another, medical student.
Yeah.
You'll know this better than I, because I can remember what I used to give, okay? Please illuminate that schedule of vaccines so that people here know how many vaccines we're talking about and how difficult it can be to keep up with them sometimes.
So to give you the precise number, I'd actually have to physically write it out and count them myself. But it's, when you consider, the vaccine, and I know one of the previous witnesses showed you all the vaccine schedule on that chart. So where it gets particularly complicated, again, what it comes down to is that certain vaccines, people can be on schedule and still get vaccines at different times. Certain vaccines can be given as combination vaccines. Some of those combo vaccines include up to 5 different vaccines in one. There's different points in the lifespan at which if a vaccine is missed, then you will not provide it at all after a certain age, rotavirus being an example of that. So there's a lot of different intricacies as to how many vaccines someone will get, what point they get them. Also things like when is a vaccine contraindicated. So for example, if somebody has a particular medical illness or allergy or other reasons for why one of the particular vaccines and the way it's manufactured would potentially be detrimental to them. So unfortunately, that is not just a simple answer to give a single number that's applicable to all. And I would say that's why my particular preceptors emphasize you need to know it, and you can't just rely on what MTRAC wants to prompt you with in terms of what vaccines are due. You need to personally understand and know your individual patient to know what they're due to get.
So you can't quote that schedule?
Like I said, I can draw it out for you if you like. Yeah.
Dude, just give an idea how many shots these kids have to get.
It's in here.
So
Off the top of your head, please.
right, so starting at birth, you have hepatitis B that ends up being a three-part vaccine. You have DTaP, that's 5 overall. Hepatitis A, that's 2 doses overall. For the HPV vaccine, that's 3 doses overall. For rotavirus, if they're receiving that, that's a minimum of 2 doses, depending on which type. Again, it also comes down to which version of the vaccine somebody has received. There's Hib, which is, again, 3 to 4, depending on which version of the vaccine you've received. There's, what am I missing?
MMR.
Pneumonia. MMR starts at 1 year. That's also 3 doses, plus boosters later in life.
Varicella.
Yes, now varicella, which is also will be multiple doses. So children receive that starting at 1 year. They also get boosters when they're school aged, and I know that I'm forgetting at least one.
That's about 26.
Yeah.
26. 49.
There you go.
Sorry, you can't testify from the chair.
Okay.
You want to sign up.
My point was, and this young lady has done a very excellent job of reciting these off the top of her head, is just how intricate and complicated it can be to keep up with a vaccination schedule. You did a very good job. I think
Thank
your
you.
preceptor would be proud. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it. The chair calls Coleman Hemphill testifying for himself, testifying against the bill.